Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And thank you so much for being here with us today as we discuss how to successfully build a hospitality brand catered to the newly emerged personas. Quickly, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Olarsh, and I am the Director of Customer Success in EMEA for Guesty, the industry's leading short-term rental property management platform. Joining me today are two prominent thought leaders from the vacation rental ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming Daniel Perry, owner and marketing manager of BookStayHop, as well as Georgia Whalen, founder and co-owner of Casita. Thank you both for your participation today. I'm going to begin by sharing our latest holiday season data, and then I'll invite our panelists to discuss how to successfully build a hospitality brand catered to newly emerged personas. We'll then begin our live panel discussion and conclude with an interactive Q&A featuring questions from our audience. Getting started, it is exciting to say that this holiday season looks extremely promising. Data captured shortly after Labor Day already indicates robust travel heading into the fall and through the holidays. Now that the US is slated to open its borders to vaccinated international travelers, even higher numbers in the vacation rental space won't be surprising. However, it is important to note that we might see fluctuating numbers in terms of booking volume, and this is due to new variants like Delta also coinciding with the flu season. That said, as of now, Thanksgiving 2021 reservation volume in the US is already 302% higher than 2020 and 93% higher than 2019. In the US, Christmas reservation volume is 469% higher than 2020 and 157% higher than 2019. And finally, in the UK, Christmas reservation volume is 433% higher than 2020, while just 12% lower than 2019. This data really does highlight that even given the threat of new variants, consumers are planning, as of now, to travel over the holiday season, and they're opting to book alternative accommodations, which, as we know, is more private in nature compared to the traditional crowded hotel stays. With pent-up demand for travel on the rise and travelers increasingly turning to vacation rentals to host their excursions, property management companies won't just be enjoying higher occupancy rates this holiday season, but they're also going to be earning more per stay than they did at this same time last year and in 2019. Christmas in the US, which is slated to be the nation's most expensive holiday of the year, is seeing price increases at 53% higher than 2020 and 80% higher than 2019. In the UK, Christmas rates continue to rise this year, with consumers booking at prices 102% higher than 2020 and 47% higher than pre-COVID 2019 rates. Now, this should come as no surprise, as guests are booking further in advance, resulting in less inventory to choose from closer to the desired check-in dates. And although prices usually do continue to rise as we get closer to the winter holidays, the booking of limited inventory may coincide with a holiday impacted by the flu season and the Delta variant. As such, we do believe that we will see prices rise and dip a bit depending on these factors. Now, before property management companies can properly prepare to impress their guests and ensure they have the right resources to do so, they need to know who these guests are. The travel personas that have emerged due to COVID-19 and who are increasingly opting to stay in vacation rentals include families seeking COVID-safe accommodation, health-conscious international travelers, outdoor fanatics, cityscapers heading to rural areas, luxury travelers, as well as life shoppers who are experimenting living in different cities. Let's take the outdoor fanatics, for example. Pinterest business research has shown a 150% increase in searches related to national parks and a 65% increase in searches related to hiking versus that of 2019. These travelers who have been cooped up in their homes throughout the pandemic are eagerly seeking vacation rentals in proximity to nature trails, national parks, and bodies of water. Another interesting persona that emerged is the health-conscious international traveler. As more and more countries are reopening their gates to fully vaccinated international travelers, it is to be expected that these travelers will be seeking safe, contact-free accommodations. As a negative COVID-19 test means missing their flights and self-quarantining in a foreign country, these travelers will be taking extra precautions to stay healthy. They're also staying longer than usual. Extended stays are gaining steam, with some property management companies logging an increase of 65% in reservations lasting 14 days or more compared to that of 2019. However, do keep in mind that five-star hospitality isn't one size fits all. Each of these personas does come with a unique set of expectations that success-minded property management companies should ensure they are equipped to meet. These new traveler personas will expect even more than COVID-safe, contact-free experiences, such as keyless entry systems and digital concierges. Our data shows that most travelers will spend more time than ever in your units, and with that, they'll expect their unique lifestyles to be fully met as well. These guest users in the press snippets here have shown incredible resilience and adaptability as they've shifted their strategies to meet these emerging guest needs and expectations. For example, let's look at High Rocky Homes. They converted one room in their 10-unit lodge into an office area just to accommodate guests looking for some space to work remotely as they were staying for longer periods. As a result, in the midst of the pandemic, they saw unprecedented occupancy rates. So with everything we've said, this of course leads us back to Guesty. Guesty was built with the understanding that professional hosts and property management companies have a ton of tasks to accomplish on a daily basis, whether it be listing distribution, staff management, report creation, accounting, or even guest communication. Our software provides solutions that help them automate these tasks in order to save valuable time so they can scale their business without sacrificing quality. Throughout COVID-19, our automation technology and ability to streamline and centralize operations has been a massive asset to property management companies, making it easier for them to quickly pivot their businesses and function with leaner teams. As such, we will continue to ensure our platform's flexibility as we navigate 2021 and beyond together. I'd also like to take a moment and specifically spotlight a Guesty feature that has seen a 55% increase in adoption over the last year. Professional hosts were forced to function with leaner teams, and as a result, increasingly relied on tech to facilitate operations. As such, they turned to our auto messaging tools in order to handle guest communications before, during, and after their stays. So, how can you successfully build a hospitality brand catered to newly emerged personas? That's what we're going to discuss here today, and I'm going to start by asking Daniel Perry, owner and marketing manager of BookStayHop, to showcase the marketing, branding, and communication tactics that they've been implementing to help them stand out from the competition. And without further ado, please, Daniel, take it from here.
Thanks so much, Matthew. That was a lot of great information. I think we'll probably, steal a portion of that to share with our clients. It's the same questions that are asked by us are asked by our clients. So I love that. So we're going to start with a little bit of a video. We were lucky enough to have Guesty come out here and do a video for us. Airbnb, we're actually the largest superhost in the state of Oregon with more than 50 properties. You want presence on as many websites as you can possibly be on hundreds, if not 1,000 sites. The risk you take in doing that is that somebody is going to book something and then somebody else somewhere in the world is going to book something right on top of it. One of our favorite things about Guesty is it's been all but flawless in that area. Last year at this time, we were probably working with 30 or more double bookings prior to going with Guesty. This season, which is a much busier season than we had last season, we don't have a single one. So we won't show you the whole video, but we wanted to kind of show you where we were at 2 years ago, which I think I said in that we had 50 properties. So thanks to our team here and also big help from Guesty, the machine has been built. And so by saying that, we have gone from 50 properties to 115 properties. So just a huge amount of growth in such a short period of time. We've also expanded what we do. So we started off doing residential, which were vacation homes and cottages and cabins. And this year we expanded into doing commercial properties. So we now support also historic inns and resorts. So the portfolio of having Guesty work with us has really allowed us to step pretty far out of our box, not only in quantity, but also the type of properties that we have. And you see a couple of those featured there in the slides. Territory, we've also expanded. So with the help of Guesty, we were able to expand outside of Oregon into California and also into Loreto, Baja, Mexico. So here's my story and my warning. So I say, what's in a name? And part of that is the evolution of who we were. We never really meant to become a vacation reservation management company. We were a design company that did vacation homes. And occasionally we would run into people and find out that their properties weren't being managed very well. We managed a private portfolio of our own. And people would ask, can we tag on to you? You know, could you manage our properties too? So we started off with 5, and 5 became 50, and 50 became 115. But our name in the beginning was AirHop, and it was very specific. As you could imagine, Airbnb, and hop, like a bellhop. And so we thought that would get the idea into people's heads of what we do. When we decide to go for our trademark registration, we thought maybe we should bury the word air just a little bit, just in case. And so we added book to it, and we became a book AirHop. That we then move forward to do our filings. It does cost to do your filings, by the way. Trademark is not easy, both in the US and internationally. It costs us US about $8,000 to do that. We thought everything had sailed through and we were taking high ownership of Book AirHop. And then during a meeting, the Airbnb logo actually popped up on my phone during a meeting. I didn't know they had that power, but they do. And I answered that call. And they said, Daniel, this is so-and-so vice president of Airbnb marketing. We have good news and we have bad news. And I said, of course, you know, what's the good news? He said, the good news is you are our #1 super host in the state of Oregon. We're now the #1 super host in the Pacific Northwest. I'm ecstatic about it. And I forgot about the bad news part. And I said, what's the bad news? He goes, we really don't like the word air in your name. And we're wondering in a non-legal way if we can convince you to change that. So trademark filings happened all over again. We roundtabled it as a staff. We thought you book something, you stay there, you hop on to the next place. So that's how you go from AirHop to Book AirHop to BookStayHop and spend $8,000. So just be aware of who you are as a company now and possibly where you might be going, what that vision story is, and how that might apply to your business. And think a little bit larger maybe than the city or town that you start out in. So how do we market? We market in a couple different ways. Just getting back from the VRMAs, I know that different people really support different types of marketing. So this is what works for us. I'm not saying it necessarily works for everybody, but this is our model. And for us, it works out particularly well. We invest a lot onto the OTA side of things. A good portion of our business, about 48% of our business, is through Airbnb. A little over 25% of our business is through VRBO, and the remainder of that is really direct. I know people have different feelings about using the different OTAs. For us, don't be afraid to go out there and negotiate. We are a big player for Airbnb. We're a big player for VRBO. We are lucky enough to have reps. So we worked with those reps and the people above them to negotiate what our pricing was, down to a point that, quite honestly, it doesn't matter to us if something comes direct or if it comes through one of the OTAs. We pay about the same price coming from any of those directions. The plus is that on the marketing side, Airbnb, of course, is significantly bigger than we are. VRBO is significantly bigger than we are. And they really do a great job at promoting us and keeping those in those top pages. The way that we stay on those top pages is really by focusing on reviews and ratings. We're not afraid to talk to every single one of our guests and have them leave a review for us, whether it's positive or constructive. And we respond personally to every single review, no canned responses. There's, I think, a lot of areas that is a blessing having Guesty work for us and the automation of everything. For us, that's not in reviews. In reviews, we want to do an individual reply to every single guest. And we think that that has an impact in future bookings. Right now, we're sitting at about 4,900 reviews with Airbnb, 2,000 reviews with VRBO. And again, very lucky if you add in Google to that, we're sitting at about 7,500 reviews in 5 years, 95% of our guests rating us at a perfect 5 stars. We feel that that, more than anything that we do, drives people to our sites, whether it's our direct site or whether it's our OTA sites. The importance of local marketing. Again, I mentioned in the beginning about our weather in different areas. We're in a unique area, and maybe you are too. So we are down in a valley. The people that live down here in the valley are very lucky. We have rivers and lakes and wineries, but we also like to get out of this area and do other things. In about 30 minutes I don't know what that is in kilometers. No, in time. I guess time's the same. It's miles. So in about 30 minutes, you can be up in the mountains and up at the lakes. In about an hour and a half, you can be over to the coast. So about 40% of our guests are actually local that are going out to these other properties. We very purposely are in these large publications. We do full page ads only, and they are coffee table type publications. So they're large with semi-hard covers on them. And the nice thing is they sit at our competition. They sit in every hotel room. They sit at every winery. They sit at the guest stops when people are coming and crossing into the state line and pick up this information. And we specifically create this type of marketing to encourage our local stays to come up to the cabins and to go over to the coast. It works really well. So don't forget about old school. You know, OTA marketing is great, online marketing is great, but gosh, there's a huge demographic that still likes to look at magazines. So we make sure that that's a part of our budget as well. Again, on the importance of local marketing, it can be different things. So not only are we doing those coffee table publications, we're doing radio. Things like radio and television can be extremely expensive for a small company. We have a great rep that we work with in radio, and his idea was to do trade and sponsorship. So we do trade outs on our properties in lieu of actual payment, and we do sponsorship. By sponsorship, I mean that every time they go to a news break, they'll say news and weather brought to you by BookStayHop in the cabins at Hyatt Lake. News and weather brought to you by BookStayHop and Requa Inn on the California coast. It's a great little push, and that happens about 24 times a day for almost no money. So it's a great way to get that out there and plant that seed. The other thing we do is those local radio DJs, we have them stay at our properties, because then they'll go back from the commercial break and they'll talk about staying there. That's the best advertisement of all. Technology. So here's where all of our plugs come in. So as I said before, Guesty really helped us build the machine. We were working with a PMS system that we always say on our team, we all grew up with. And it worked for us for about the first year. We then moved to a startup company, and everything seemed well in the beginning, but we actually outgrew them. And we really needed somebody that could solve a lot of issues with us. We did quite a bit of investigation. We know how difficult it is to move from one PMS to another. And for us, Guesty was the answer. Definitely the answer, because we've now been with Guesty for 3 years as of last month. So our biggest issue that we had with our previous PMSs were double bookings. Everybody hates a double booking. Everybody hates to call that guest, especially if you have to cancel one of them because you can't move them somewhere else. I would like to officially report that in 3 years, we've never had a double booking with Guesty. And that makes my team really happy. So thank you. The second portion that we added to that was yield management. You can sometimes only grow with your team by so many people and so many properties in a given area. Yield management is a phenomenal tool. We in particular use Rented. I know that Guesty partners with a number of different companies. For us, Rented was really the answer. And I like to use a very specific example. Some of the properties that we have, I own. I'm very lucky to own the tiniest cabin ever, 600 square feet. Again, I don't know what that is in meters, on the lake. But you know, what can 600 square feet do? Back in the day, before we had yield management, if it did $2,500 a month, I was a pretty happy camper, or glamp camper, because it's a cabin. With Rented, that same cabin has done as much as $8,000 a month. So what that means to me is I paid off my mortgage. I love to share that story with our clients of what yield management can do. And we talk about telescope and microscope. So many clients want to focus on the daily price of something. I back them up all the way to the month and say, look at what you did in the month. Who cares what you did in the day? As long as we're getting 5 stars, as long as we're getting the right type of guest at the property and it's not turning into Party Central, as long as we're meeting all those qualifiers, does it really matter if it's $115 a night or $375 a night if it still adds up to a nice paycheck every month? So if you're not using a yield management company, I can't encourage you enough to take a look at a yield management company. My second line under rented is that without adding a single property, we grew by $1 million last year. Yield management is so important and it's so easy. It's about the easiest thing you're going to do. For us, rented is also part of key data. If you're not using key data, take a hard look at that. Key data does owners reports. We spend so much time compiling information for our owners, letting them know what their properties are doing, what their competition is doing, and also forecasting. Forecasting is so much more important than looking backwards. And key data is wonderful at doing that. And it's already there. All you do is click on the property, the report's generated, it downloads it with your logo on it, and you look like a superhero, and it took you 2 clicks. So, you know, be that superhero. Let's see, what do we have next? Growth. So putting that all in perspective and what this can all mean, this combination for us of using Guesty, our marketing, rented, and key data, is we did something that we felt was fairly phenomenal during these times. And from 2018 to 2019, we doubled our business in gross sales. We did it again during COVID from 2019 to 2020. If we stay on track over the next 3 months, we will have doubled our business again. These tools, having these things in place and building that machine is so important. It makes all the difference in the world. That doesn't happen without growing your staff. I have my core. It started with just me, and then there were 3 of us for 3 years, and we've now jumped again. So there's now 12 employees. That was a pretty big jump. But we came up with a factor that for every 10 well-producing properties, that equals a human being. We're high touch. We are very concierge-oriented as far as how we work with our guests. And that's the magic number for us. Again, it may be more or less for other companies, but for the type of work we do, that's what we call it. In our side and where we're at in our company, we call it 10 points of touch. And Guesty really helps with that. The biggest part they help is with those automated messages that Matthew was mentioning earlier. It saves so much time. It allows things to happen in the middle of the night when we're asleep and people think we're responding directly to them. And that combination of the 10 points of touch, I think really makes a huge difference. 72% of our guests leave a review. 95% of those are perfect 5 stars. So let those tools help you. Don't just see that they're available and not use them. Take that time to invest in them because it can change your world. It definitely changed ours. That's it. Thank you all so much. Here is my contact information. Always feel free to reach out, and we're happy to share just about everything. Take care.
That's great. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing those insights. And for those who are curious, the 600 square foot cabin is quite small. It's just shy of 56 square meters. So well noted. And with that being said, I will now invite Georgia Wayland, who is the founder and co-owner of Casita, to share how they have been able to successfully build their hospitality brand, growing from 10 to over 140 properties in 2 years, despite the challenges presented by COVID. Over to you, Georgia.
Thank you for the introduction as well. We're coming to you from Miami Beach, and we're very thankful that Miami has just been ranked the hottest city in the US. This means that my dad is coming from, a beautiful hot mess. We have everyone from people looking to sort of try a lifecation, from families with children looking for beautiful outdoor situations, to health-conscious travelers, to people coming for our entertainment scene. So this is a lot of data from the many different demographics that we deal with. So when we started with Guesty, we had 10 properties, but we actually started a year before that with only 1. We've now expanded to over 100. It's a little bit of flex because we're onboarding another 80 units next month, which will be all going on to Guesty as well. We started with the properties when in 2019, my husband and I came to visit Miami Beach, and we had to choose between what was the only options really then. We had a dilapidated Airbnb with really low quality standards, or an expensive industrial hotel. We thought there's space for something better. Probably all of you feel the same. That's why we're in vacation rentals and trying to provide that unique boutique service. Within 6 months, we had gotten to those 10 properties, and we're starting to see cracks forming. We wanted to expand, But one, I was spending hours every day, just me handling all of the communication methods. That's, SMS, phone calls, emails, platform messages, and any other way they could contact me. And secondly, and more concerning, especially as we're about to onboard another 40 identical units, our 10 properties weren't performing evenly. At first, I thought that this might be an issue with the actual tapping out of a demographic. I had built too many similar looking properties and nobody else wanted to stay in them. Then I started to see the same problem happening with other operators that had nearly identical units at the same address. Here's a look at one of our competitors in Miami. Fantastic company, beautiful work. These units are hosting the same amount of people, same amenities, same location. Knowing that 72% of guests on Airbnb are leaving a review, we can see that they're not performing evenly. One of them has 37, one has 3. What it became clear is that Airbnb's algorithm for search results suppresses what they determine to be duplicate listings. Considering that only the first 300 listings in any given Airbnb search show up, in a highly competitive market, it means that one of your listings is essentially dying. So if we were going to scale, especially with identical units, I needed something that was going to overcome this issue. And if I didn't get a second to myself without my phone going off, I was going to lose my mind. Our solution was Guesty. First, the unified inbox and communication features. The unified inbox takes all of the communication methods that our guest is trying to reach you at and puts them into one beautifully unified thread, along with internal notes and the ability to access information I already put on, which meant that I was making saved responses, so I wasn't answering the same thing over and over again. It also allowed me to hire cheaper remote help so that I had remote customer service agents answering some of these hundreds of guest messages coming in, using the information I provided, and it still looked like a unified front on Airbnb. And of course, both of my fellow panelists have touched on the amazing auto message feature. It meant that, right now we answer about 700 messages a day and 90% of those are automated. So this is incredible. Then my favorite thing is the multi-listing tool. If you're not familiar with it, this allows hosts to take identical properties at the same address and loop them together into one listing that's published. What this means is that you're compounding your reviews and your reservations. It makes it look really hot for Airbnb, and this is where we get into SEO. So if you're not familiar, Airbnb uses about 100 factors for their search ranking. These are not weighted evenly, and I have put up a great sort of study of this by Nick Childs on the left-hand side. As we can see, overall guest satisfaction, that's your star rating, and the number of reviews are both highly influential, with the number of reviews, length of reviews, and the quality. By compounding these, you get, and I've bragged a little bit, you get one of our properties here. This property is less than a year old, and you can see we have over 1,000 reviews at 4.81. Because it's so popular, it's always at the top. Secondly, the multi-listing feature allows us to reduce orphan days by moving our calendar around. By doing this, we achieve what we get is this little rare find tag. That means that we have a high conversion and high occupancy rate. Airbnb loves to send guests to properties that they won't know that the guests can book and that they will book because it's a good fit. So with these excellent tools, we quickly got up to 108 units in the start of 2020. In the first 3 months, we had done $1 million in revenue. We were looking to expand a lot more. And then we had COVID hit. For Miami, this meant that they actually shut down all lodging establishments except for 2 properties that were, COVID safe centers. So we were down from 108 properties to 4. And it was a really big crisis moment. Former CEO of Intel said, good companies survive a crisis, great companies are made by them. So within 2 months, we had started negotiations for new properties. We had taken over large portfolios from our competitors that were looking to get out of the Miami market. Miami is a really interesting market to be in. So, I think some of the national brands were looking to retreat, and we took the opportunity to seize up everything they were shedding. So we're now at roughly 140 of the new onboarded ones. So we're back in business, but we realized that the business had changed with COVID. No longer were we seeing the party scene that came to Miami that didn't really care where they were sleeping and what they were enjoying. We're seeing a whole new emerging demographic. So these are some of the travel trends in the post-COVID market that were identified by the World Travel Council. Sustainability. This has long been something that drives guests to go to boutique hotels and vacation rentals. This is a personalized experience. And by offering that local approach, it feels more authentic. Even though most of us are professional hosts we can really avoid that institutional feeling by taking the opportunity from the first impression to connect with our guests. On our OTA platforms, this means filling out our profiles completely to show everything that's unique about us. And in a lot of cases, we find that using a profile picture of a human being is a lot more personal than using that of a logo. When it comes to your property, you want to be showcasing anything that's unique, even if you don't think it is. So in Miami, that comes to Art Deco buildings, which is a polite way to say that they're old. But this is unique, that some people don't have this. Anything that you've done with your space, with your decor, from local to antiques to eco-friendly, sustainable cleaning supplies or toiletries. Next, with people looking to connect again and get outdoors after a long lockdown, they're going to be looking to explore your local neighborhood. If you're able, create a map that really shows what you're near and around. If you're not, photos of your neighborhood are great too. It paints a picture beyond the interior space of the experience that the guest is going to be having. COVID-19 was really a catalyst for something that was long awaited in the lodging industry. If you're not already offering self-check-in, please get on it. 92% of guests prefer it. And there's some fantastic auto-locking and features through Guesty's marketplace that will actually integrate directly with your reservations. With this as well, smart home devices, not just smart locks, but anything that guests can be doing and exploring in the home, from smart TVs, gaming consoles, even low-tech things. People are spending more time indoors. They want to know they can enjoy the space. Lastly, highlighting any remote work tools. Matthew had given the great example of a lodge actually converted one of their units. If you can't go that large, show what they can do in your space. That means highlighting, a quiet space that might be good for Zoom calls or work meetings, to maybe an internet speed test, Ethernet connections, basically anything you can think that they could use while they're working remotely. Another trend we're seeing is that guests are spending more time searching around their stay, with search results up in this holiday season way higher than they have ever been. So what guests are looking for is a stay that they can really control. Some of these things we're seeing are domestic drive-in locations, with 72% of guests saying that they're going to drive to the next location. This makes sense with, border reopening still being a bit unsure. We're hoping for this in November for our European and Brazilian guests to be coming back. So with this in mind, highlight any parking options around your location. If you don't include parking, that's fine. There's going to be something in your city or area. If you're in a remote location and guests can happily drive in their full trailer, you should say that too. That's a unique thing. Another trend we're seeing is love for outdoor spaces. For us in Miami, the beach is obviously a great thing, but if you don't have something that big, showcase anything, even if it's mundane to you. That means architectural highlights. Maybe there's a fantastic mid-century building nearby that they should see. If you're in a beautiful remote location, your favorite walks, trails, natural features they should see. Anything that's open air. With this in mind, if you're able to provide better pointers to make that connection with your guests as a self-guided tour, or GPS My City is one of my favorites to send our guests to, this will allow them to control their own excursions, especially in a concern of being in crowded spaces, variant waves, and an infection risk. With this in mind, and this is going to sound repetitive, you need to highlight any and all health and cleaning processes that you're doing to keep your guests safe. If you're on Airbnb, they're already giving you that five-step badge, but you can take that a step further with your photos and description and amenities. If you're not already updating your photos, a photo that's bright, clean, and even if you have those little sanitary bands around your toilet, we find guests love those. Now is not the time for a boho messy bed photo. Next, things are changing really rapidly. We saw a huge booking spike as soon as the announcement for borders reopening for our international guests. Keep informed of what's happening. If there are any changes to your area, it helps you to tell guests whether or not they need a mask, what may or may not be open. Secondly, this is really going to dictate your pricing. You can keep on top of this by following the news yourself, or there's some fantastic automated revenue management features in the Guesty marketplace that you don't have to do the work for yourself. So what does this mean for our holidays? We're looking forward to a fantastic and strong holiday season. I apologize for any repeat on this. Matthew provided some great information on this as well, but we're seeing the exact same thing, that the holiday travel planning is matching 2019 levels or surpassing. What is different is that guests are spending a lot more time on the individual property websites. They're doing their due diligence. They want to know about your refund policy. What will happen if something happens? What can they expect at your place? Secondly, and we think this is the flexibility surrounding people's travel. People are allowed to remote work. So we're seeing longer stays, which I think is something that's here to stay. And so there's a little bit of flexibility around the dates. Your travel dates aren't exactly matching preceding years. So, price accordingly, keep on top of the current trends, and of course, use an automated revenue management feature if you have that. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that insightful information, Georgia. It was really great to hear, and I think it really complemented what Daniel had mentioned as well. So with that being said, some of the questions from the audience. And we'll begin with you, Daniel. Would it be possible for you to elaborate on those 10 points of touch that you had mentioned at the end of your presentation?
Sure. I know our email connection's also in there. So if anybody wants an email version of that, feel free to reach out to me. But basically what we do is we want to make sure that we are in contact with the guests throughout the entire process. One of the things that we change is we have different people that work in guest services at different times of the day and on different days. So we used to just respond, the team at BookStayHop, but we decided to make that even more personal. And so everything is responded to by Haley or by Bonnie or by Dina or Cassie, Hannah, everybody who's in that role. We feel that that creates more familiarity. Sometimes it takes a little bit too much ownership. And they're like, can I talk to the other person? We're like, they're off today. But what we do is from the very beginning, we try and build that experience of when someone's booking a property or they have questions about a property, really putting them in the best type of property that's going to help them fit. So generally that's about our first 3 touches that happen. It can be 3 or 4 touches, and that could be email, it could be a phone call, it could be through the Guesty system or a text. Then once we have the guest, and I think this is the most important thing, is we try and touch that guest at least 2 more times during their stay, asking them how their stay is. It's amazing how a very small item, if dealt with in the very beginning, can create an excellent stay over it becoming the catalyst to everything else that went bad in their stay. We arrived and there were 4 of us and 1 roll of toilet paper. If we reach out to that guest and they say, hey, everything's great, except we have 1 roll of toilet paper, and half hour later, we have a bag sitting at their front door, problem solved, they're happy, and they continue to keep going on their way. And again, getting the constructive feedback. So after the stay, there are more points of touch, and that could be 2 to 3 more points where we reach out to the guest and really encourage them to leave a review. We also encourage them and remind them that these properties are individually owned. So if you do have something that's constructive and you can say something constructive on the private side instead of the public side, and it's something that we can deal with, a loose cupboard door or something like that, that doesn't necessarily need to be on the public side. And we'll definitely make sure that we take the time to resolve that. So that's how we kind of work our points, is before, during, and after.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. And we have another question from Sherry that I think is great for both of you. And maybe we'll let Georgia answer first if she'd like. Do you have any specific marketing techniques for targeting those who are brand new to Airbnb, Vrbo, et cetera? So those guests who maybe are just trying out these OTAs for the first time.
So really the average Airbnb guest on Airbnb specifically is only going to look at the first 2 pages of search results. So your number 1 marketing technique is to make sure you're up there. Now, if you cannot achieve what I think both Daniel and I agree, which is your super status and amazing reviews, you're running out, you got a bad review, don't let that destroy you. You want to make your property as unique as possible. Think about the type of demographic you want and adjust your property to that. So if you're looking to accommodate families, make sure that you're getting amenities that will attract families, and that will make the search result very specific. So even if you're not in the first few pages of a general search for, say, Miami Beach from November 16th to 17th, but the guest is looking for those amenities for 5 people with 4 children and a family-friendly space, you're still going to show up, even if the superhost ass is there, the number of views is not there. Become unique to your demographic that you want to achieve.
Fantastic advice. Thank you, Georgia. Daniel, anything you'd like to add to that?
Definitely in line with what Georgia was saying. One of the things we make sure that we do, and it's important, especially if you have a lot of properties and some of those properties you added years ago, take a look at your pictures. Make sure that those first 5 pictures are your hero pictures. In those hero pictures, make sure that there is a picture of the kitchen in the first 5. People are comparing you to hotels, and they're comparing you. You want to show them the things that you have that another property might not. When you're working with a new guest, somebody that's new to Airbnb or VRBO, those shots are the things that are going to attract them most. I always say every house has a front and every house has a bed. So unless it's the most amazing front or it's the most amazing bed, we try and focus our hero pictures on other things that are really going to attract that person when they are looking at pages and pages of different things.
Fantastic. Thanks for that additional information. I like that terminology, hero pictures. I'm going to remember that. Perfect. So let's transition to a question for both of you, and maybe just to keep the rotation going as is, we'll start with Georgia. Through an almost unparalleled turbulent time for this industry of tourism, you've been able to really flourish and, as you mentioned, even grow and attract new audiences. What would you say your one big piece of advice is for other property management companies who are looking to emulate your success?
Innovate. This is an industry that's built on disruption. If we are complacent, not only do we fall behind in guests finding us, but we fall behind our competitors. We need to keep on top of the data that's coming out, the type of things the guests want, monitor what they're saying to us. Our reviews are extremely important to find out what guests are looking for and what they don't want. If we innovate, we can always stay ahead of the marketing trends. And we found that our competitors who didn't survive, everything that happened were those who really stuck to their old models, that it worked before and it'll keep working. But when things are a paradigm shift, that's not going to happen.
Excellent. And Daniel, from your end, what would you say is your one big piece of advice?
We always call it eggs in one basket. We are extremely driven by one thing in Southern Oregon. It's the Southern Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Not really a festival, it's 9 months long. So it really is a way of life. A total of 7 theaters between 3 at OSF and the other theaters. Many of the accommodations that are here, and the reason that we have so many accommodations, are driven by theater. People come from all over the world. At any given time and place, we have 25,000 extra guests in this area driven by those motivators. By what I mean by eggs in one basket is we've had smoke seasons here in the past prior to the pandemic. Smoke lessens the amount of people that come for theater. We were already learning our lessons. So years ago, we started focusing on everything else. We started focusing on the wineries. We started focusing on hiking and rafting, our national park at Crater Lake, and all the other things that people could do. So when COVID stripped away our biggest egg in our basket, when it took away the theater, it didn't affect us the way it affected many. Of course, we suffered during that time, but we rebounded in 6 weeks. We now call it frosting on the cake. So Oregon Shakespeare Festival has announced a schedule for next year. We came out of this in a very good place, but now we get the frosting on the cake. So with theater coming back to us, those are just now additional reservations and not our sole support mechanism. So take a good hard look at how you support and really how you advertise, and make sure that one factor can't take you down. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's direct back to Georgia. According to B&B Investor, there are over 7,000 Airbnb listings in Miami. And let's be honest, there's probably thousands more from the other OTAs as well. I know you've mentioned a bit around this, but I'm really curious if you had to summarize into one big point, or maybe elaborate even more. What are you doing most to attract guests in such a hyper competitive market?
To reiterate, you need to be showing up in the first searches for any given stay. Diversify what you're offering, knowing that some guests might want to be close to certain features and amenities. Showcase your distance to them. Showcase your amenities for guests who are looking to stay at home. You also get a search rank boost for the number of amenities you have. And some of them are really minute things, like a plug outlet cover for family friendly, those things that cost, $1 for 100 of them at the dollar store. So you really want to maximize your offerings. And a lot like real estate, where your kitchen gets you double what you renovate, consider the same thing with your listing. If including a little bit of reading material, you can hit that amenity to make guests happy and they're able to have some books in the place, is going to cost you only a few dollars. You should do that. Maximize what you're offering to guests to outrank your competition in amenities, guest quality of stay, guests are happy when they get more for their value. And of course, that's going to give you that big push in your search ranking feature. So you're always showing up in the first ones. If you are a fit for that guest, they're going to book with you if they see you first.
That's great advice. And I hope that none of the listeners here have properties in Miami so they can't steal from you.
You know, we're very fortunate being so busy right now. We're one of the areas that has a huge influx of, I'm actually moving and I'm trying to find a house and there's like nothing. You cannot buy a house, you cannot rent a house, there's nothing. So it's so busy here that, you know, the more competition, the merrier. It creates a great product for our city.
Fantastic, really fantastic to hear. Daniel, coming back to you now, as someone who's devoted so much of your career to growing Ashland's tourism footprint and who now manages such a sizable portfolio of rentals in the city, what sort of changes and trends in traveler personas have you noticed over the last year? And additionally, what types of people are visiting Ashland now that you didn't see before?
Ooh, you know, I love that question. So we are geographically in an area that is supported by 2 metro areas, which that wasn't the case in the past. So we are about halfway between San Francisco and we're about halfway between Portland and Seattle. By halfway, I mean, we're like 6 to 7 hours away. But people weren't traveling prior to that. You know, they would go maybe 3 or 4 hours out of their way if they were going to drive. So we were used to a certain type of clientele coming in, for the most part, older, coming to the theater and going to wineries and having that experience. The whole world has changed for us. So people coming out of the Bay Area and coming out of Portland and Seattle, it's definitely marked a much younger trend in who is staying with us. We also get people that, because they work for maybe large software companies, they'll stay at one of our properties for a week or two, then they move to another property for a week or two, and then another property for a week or two. We never really saw that in the past. And we're seeing so many more people not traveling just because it's their 1 week of vacation a year or 2 weeks of vacation a year, but they're just traveling to travel. They can work from anywhere, and their kids can be, you know, going to school from anywhere. So why not get out of their, you know, 600 square foot condo in San Francisco and be at a cabin, as long as it has great internet, you know, at a lake.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. And I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So Georgia, I will come back to you again.
Sure.
We know that Casita prides itself in being, quote, the evolution of the lodging industry. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and how you are living up to that vision?
So I feel like a lot of our wonderful industry actually can say the same thing about themselves. We are at the cusp of something completely new. People are not ever going to travel the way they did in the past. And Daniel touched on this a bit too, that everyone has the flexibility to really live, work, be anywhere they want. There was a fantastic talk by Brian Guesty, the CEO of Airbnb, on Skift, where he said, we used to work in one place, live in one place, and vacation in another. Now it's all one place. With this in mind, this is not just an evolution for our company, it's an evolution not only of the travel industry, but the way of life. I don't think that people will ever go back to the idea that they only get, you know, 1 week of vacation every year and that they're going to fly long distances to Europe. Every weekend is an opportunity to get away and explore something new. You can drive to your local, and you can even fly. I mean, we flew to Mexico last week because, you know, we can. I work from the computer. I can supervise my team from the computer. And I could, this sort of thing, this sort of freedom that people are getting, I think our job in the vacation rental industry is to enable that. Like Daniel said, has to have great Wi-Fi. Make it comfortable. People are spending more time working inside too. That means highlighting things like great kitchens, things around them they can connect and explore to feel like they can stay in that place. They can explore a new option for where they might want to live.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Georgia. Let's go ahead with one last question. This is one of my favorite questions. Daniel, we'll go ahead and start with you. What do you think is in store for our industry and this ecosystem in the next 5 years? Do you have any bold predictions?
I do. That being said, we just got back from the VRMAs in San Antonio. So I was able to listen to VRBO talk about this, Airbnb talk about this, others that are in our industry that in our size range of where I'm at and where Georgia's at. And the nice thing was there seemed to be a really common thread of recovery. You know, I felt this last year, what we saw was a very adventurous spirit. You know, people that were kind of bucking the system and they were going to do it anyway. Now we're seeing that in keeping that demographic, as well as a return to who we had before. And, you know, we're able to look at, of course, like all of us, we can look out 2 years out as far as our bookings. And last year, although it was a great year, we didn't have bookings that went out a year or two. We can now look into our portfolio and see that we're already getting a really healthy stream of next spring and next summer. People are opening up that time window more than they were in the past. And because of things like theater reopening, if they want to see that particular play or do that particular event or go to that particular festival or concert, you know, they know they have to book it ahead of time. And we have a very flexible cancellation policy, so they're not risking anything. We're giving that ability to be able to pull out of that and not really have to take the financial impact of that. So I feel extremely confident.
Confidence is key, and I'm wondering, Georgia, do you feel the same, differently, something completely new?
I feel like there's a strong consensus, which I think is really encouraging because it means that we're all seeing the same data in our bookings. Guests are planning further out. We're seeing an optimism towards future bookings that didn't exist last year, which was extremely last minute. The reservations are coming in same day almost always. As well, what I'm seeing, and we touched on it before, is I'm seeing longer bookings. And I think this is specifically unique in what has historically been the majority of our properties are in South Beach, which is a party district. It was something that was historically a 2 to 3 day booking period on average. We're seeing much longer stays based on the flexibility of the people traveling, as well as I think it's a new way of life to be able to escape from the office a bit longer. So my big travel prediction is that's going to continue. I don't think that it's normal for most people to really think about going to an office 9 to 5 any longer. And we're seeing that with the global unemployment numbers too. A record number of people have quit their jobs. There was a wonderful tweet this morning from a gentleman who just made, his retirement savings in cryptocurrency and is now going to travel the world. We're at a really unprecedented time in human history where more people than ever have the ability to travel, and to travel for long periods, and to travel on last minute notice at their dream destination that they wanted to go to. And I can't see things returning. People don't want to return to, the rigidity of the preceding paradigm.
Absolutely. The optimism is fantastic, and I definitely agree. I think the fact that all of our data is showing the same trends, we have a lot to look forward to in the near and long future. To conclude, I'd like to really thank everyone for joining today, and a special big thank you to Daniel and Georgia, our panelists. We do look forward to seeing everyone at the many upcoming virtual events we have planned for the short-term rental community, all of which will be posted on our events page at guesty.com. So please do make sure to check that out. Also, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at meetup@guesty.com with any other questions you may have, or if unfortunately we didn't get a chance to answer any specific questions you may have posted today. With that being said, wishing you a wonderful rest of your day, and please do stay safe and healthy. We'll speak soon.